Why is a cis kid allowed to go through puberty that align with their gender identity to make memories be socialized in a way that aligns with their gender identity? But when I'm suggesting that a trans kid should be allowed the same privilege, then I'm a groomer and I'm like wrong and I'm evil and whatnot. I posted a YouTube video and it got me in trouble. The tweet was, forcing trans kids to wait with HRT is worse than having a kid detransition. There's more harm done by not allowing a kid who is questioning their gender identity to not explore themselves and get the treatment recommended by experts. And it's a video talking about the regret rates and whatnot, and how making someone wait, forcing them through the wrong puberty causes a lot of distress and is the reason why a lot of us feel so hopeless and disconnected from our bodies, why we disassociate and have social anxiety and whatnot. Also, making someone wait means they can't actually get the help right away. You're not going to find a healthcare provider right when you hit 18, and the therapists and whatnot that you need to talk to in order to even get the treatment have year-long waiting lists. They are struggling to even take new patients. Obviously, that got me in a little bit of trouble. First, it was the lolly people coming after me. You know, it has 107,000 views. And when I scroll down, I basically see a lot of hatred. That's just how it is. That's Twitter. But yesterday morning, I woke up to something interesting. I woke up to our favorite anime girl on the World Wide Webs, Ref Says Desu. This VTuber has repeatedly shared their desire to groom children. Lie. They even think children can consent to life-altering decisions. But where's the backlash from the VTubers? Sadly, these activists are so afraid of not being politically correct, they will support groomers like this. And it was with the thumbnail, the first one where they already, like, attacked me before. You're not leaving the kids alone. Even though I'm basically just saying that, like, hey, we want trans kids to be trans and give them the education and care that we needed. Ref Says Desu talked about me yet again, and this time I wasn't in the hospital. I was actually right at home, and it's always fun when this guy talks about you because he has 100,000 followers on Twitter, and most of them are transphobic. You don't know Ref Says Desu, who's an anti-woke grifter. He produces a lot of slop content. He's a lolicon, but I don't really want to talk about that. People who know Rev already know what he's like and what you should do with his opinion. I just want to use it as an example to talk about the transphobia that is going on coming from the right, because a lot of it is misinformation and virtue signaling and trying to appeal to like, oh, we just want to protect the children, is like really getting to me, because it's like a rhetoric that has been repeated many, many times, and it's always being used to shield themselves from criticism and shift the blame onto innocent marginalized groups like gay people, trans people. So I kind of want to talk about that. I tweeted, oh, I love Ref, he's my favorite anime girl on the internet. I'm a huge fan because he can put zero effort into his content and still make a living. Fascinating how he can just make things up and nobody is holding him accountable. Power dynamic is definitely hot, and Rev, I know it's difficult to listen to me. I know my voice is probably not going to be satisfying enough, but I want to make one thing really clear. You know, power dynamics are only hot in the ASMR that your wife makes. Maybe I'm getting my point across this way. So I responded to that tweet with, so when are you watching the video instead of harassing me over thumbnails? And Strawberry is Rev's wife saying that it's not harassment over thumbnails. Showed your tweets where you have said some pretty insane stuff. I guess wanting trans kids to have education, proper education, to have the trans youth get healthcare, be able to work with experts in the field, get proper representation and whatnot, is apparently insane stuff. Don't say controversial stuff publicly if you can't handle backlash. I mean, this is a targeted campaign against a lot of trans people. You've done that before. It's the same with like this egg-cracking culture and whatnot, taking words from the trans community, making it out to be something bad. Words that you do not understand because it literally just refers to you saying something that resonates with someone else and them realizing, hey, that might be something that I should look into. This is not even just limited for children. A lot of us don't do content for minors. Our streams are 18 plus and whatnot. When people come into my chat and they are like, hey, you helped me realize something about myself by sharing your experiences, that can be referred to cracking eggs, shattering eggs, but it is not anything violent and it is not something that is being forced upon them. But yeah, that is apparently controversial stuff. It's totally not the fault of the phrasing. I tweeted this screenshot and was like, oh, because people were asking why I said that Rev's wife is transphobic. It literally holds the same anti-trans views and endorses this type of harassment. So obviously Rev is going to have like his moment calling my wife transphobic because she condemns you for never leaving kids alone, which is like phrasing again, totally missing the point and portraying me in a negative light in order to justify your harassment. Even trans people disagree with you on this. Yes, trans people are not a hive mind, and a lot of trans people fall for the rhetoric that the right-wingers are pushing, claiming that it is my fault. I am giving a bad reputation to trans people because I'm speaking up and I'm not crawling into the closet, hiding. And right-wingers, fascists love pushing the idea that those people who step out of line are the reason why everybody else is being punished. You know, collective punishment. They love doing that. They love dividing the community and being like, listen, if you wouldn't have stepped up, then Trump wouldn't come for trans rights. They also do that with the LGB without the T. You know, if the gay people would condemn the trans people, then the gay people wouldn't have to worry about gay marriage. But I'm not falling for it, and my community isn't falling for it either. And if there are trans people on your side who support this, who believe the lies, then I don't know what to tell you. People are dumb. It doesn't matter if they are cis or trans or straight or gay. People can be dumb. And people can fall for that stuff. It is transphobic rhetoric. Denying the existence of trans kids is transphobic rhetoric. And the thing is, like, you don't even support trans adults. If I would ask you, is a trans woman a woman? You would say no. And you would hate everyone who tries to correct you. And you would endorse the trans people, the trans women who know that they are not real women. Because they push the same bigotry that you are pushing. The same transphobia that you're pushing. You have a problem with people who oppose you because your identity politics are based on ignorance, bigotry, and arrogance. And you try to find targets that you can point to and be like, look, I wouldn't post about pronouns and anti-woke stuff if these damn trans people would stop talking about gender-affirming care for minors. And Straub replied with, nobody's harassing you, you love the attention. I actually don't. And call me whatever names you want. I mean, you're transphobic. I'm calling you transphobic. Sorry, I don't believe that we should encourage minors to be altering their bodies with drugs and surgeries. So, what we're talking about here is you think that HRT is drugs and altering their body, when in reality puberty in of itself is altering the body. And you have a problem with children having a say in what is going to happen to their bodies, because you don't think that children are qualified enough to make this decision, despite the research showing that if a child works with experts, has parental consent, most trans kids who receive gender affirming care in their youth are still on HRT 5 years later. And we have the statistics, only 2% of children who begin gender-affirming hormone treatment stop. This is also not some sort of epidemic. In order to get treatment as a minor, as someone who is under the age of 18, is pretty difficult. You need multiple experts in the field to sign this off. You need to talk to therapists, pediatricians, and endocrinologists and whatnot. There are all sorts of tests. Things are constantly being monitored. You're just using an easy way in order to invalidate trans people. And the thing is, like, yeah, we need more research, but forcing trans kids to wait is not going to help us with the research on that topic, and instead is going to lead to more unalivings of those children. Because we also know that gender affirming care reduces suicide risks, because, you know, gender dysphoria, feeling helpless, disassociating, social anxiety can drive people into taking their lives. But you have no issues forcing children into life-altering decisions as long as it's their biology forcing them into that, which is really sad and it's really cruel. You do not deserve to have your opinion heard because it's based on misinformation. It is based on hate, and people elevating that is not a good idea. And that's why I said, and you wonder why content creators don't want to go near you. I'm okay with trans people as long as they never speak up, never admit to being trans, never share their pronouns, and never openly fight against bigotry. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. They don't think trans kids exist, just like how they didn't think gay kids existed years back. Oh yeah, that's just the rhetoric. It's like denying the existence of trans kids to make us out to be some sort of ideology, and we are just brainwashing children into believing these lies. We are confusing children despite the data showing the complete opposite, because we know that we are trans even if we don't have a word for it. They condone conversion therapy as long as it's cis people trying to convert trans people or gay people into being cis and straight. No matter how abusive they are, they don't have issues with that. They also never have spoken out for trans rights in general. They do not view trans people as people, make us out to be something evil that needs to be eradicated. But yeah, obviously, if you take things out of context, if you take the thumbnails and put them into a different light, then obviously you come to the wrong conclusions. And yes, I was a little bit controversial, but to these people, being controversial means acknowledging the existence of trans people, especially trans kids. Nobody is harassing you. You love the attention. I was like, nobody is harassing you. Meanwhile, I'm getting death and rape threats constantly, and sort of getting worse now that your husband sent his cult following after me while blatantly lying. And I get stuff like this from your community. Welcome to the internet. Shocking, I know. But when you go on a crusade that hinges entirely upon kids being able to consent, not true. You're going to get blowback. I mean, you're calling me a groomer in front of 100,000 people. Not really the same as me trying to fight back and have someone in my following under 10,000 people, less than 10% of your following, say bad things. Also kind of cherry picking one example, but yeah, I don't condone this stuff. Please don't harass, don't stoop down to the level. It's never going to help anyone, only going to make things worse. But blasting me for the second time in front of your audience of 100,000 people who are transphobic and saying blatantly untrue things, and obviously I get the treatment that you wanted for me, because that's just who you are. So I tweeted, hey Rev, can a kid be transgender? Rev's reply was, all you're describing as a grooming victim. They don't acknowledge that a kid can be cis or trans. Everybody is just normal, and then victims of abusive parents and being turned into a trans child, even though that is not accurate. It is the same logic that was applied for gay people. If they think that only adults are trans, yeah, I don't know. Apparently, once you turn 18, you are able to suddenly realize that you're trans, and before that, you're not allowed. And since I answered your question, can you finally answer mine? Nyara, can kids consent? I mean, when it comes to the medical field, children can, in fact, consent, but it is not sufficient. It is not enough for a kid to walk into a pharmacy and demand estrogen because they consent to it. That is not how it works. That is not how any of it works. Their parents need to consent. Multiple experts need to consent. This drags on over years. And if you are really consistent in your gender identity for a year, 2 years, it is safe to assume that you're not growing out, which is why only 2% of children who begin gender-affirming hormone treatment stop. And we don't actually know why the 2% of children actually stop gender-affirming care. Are they detransitioning? Did they realize they made a mistake? Are they regretting anything? Or is it just because they are lacking funds, or the government banned that treatment for them and they are no longer able to access it? Because that is also like a valid reason why they are detransitioners. Obviously, we need more statistics, but by blocking people from accessing this crucial treatment, you're causing a lot of issues. Obviously, children can, in fact, consent, but it is not sufficient for them to actually get treatment. This has nothing to do with anything sexual. I know they love using that as like a gotcha, being like, ha, So if I get parents consent to date their 16-year-old, then like that should be okay, right? And it's like, I mean, you know, child marriage is still a thing, and that's kind of how it works in a lot of places. I don't believe that we should encourage minors to be altering their bodies with drugs and surgeries. I want to make something really clear that 97% of surgeries among minors that are gender-affirming care are performed on cisgender male teens with gynecomastia. But you don't have issues with that because a cis boy shouldn't have breast tissue even if it's their natural body. You have problems with the 3%, I don't know, maybe intersex people who are getting surgeries. I don't see you advocating for letting cisgender boys suffer from gender dysphoria because they have gynecomastia. You only have issues with trans kids, and you want to force them into the wrong puberty. With wrong puberty, I mean the puberty that doesn't align with one's gender identity. It is the wrong puberty. Get over it. We know it's the wrong puberty. It is factually not the puberty that someone should go through because it makes gender dysphoria worse. And by forcing someone through these irreversible changes, you're causing damage that can't just be ignored, that can't just be brushed off, because that's just not how dysphoria works. You know, I still have to put in a lot of work in order to have like voice training, get like a passable voice just because of male puberty, going through all these changes, and I wish I didn't have to, because it is incredibly tedious, it is frustrating, and getting misgendered online because of my voice always hurts. Now coming to the next part. This is the last thing I will say, and it's quite a lot, and there's a lot of misinformation going on in there. Gender affirming care, already in quotation marks, is like a bad sign for kids is wrong because they can't fully consent. It doesn't matter because even if a kid could fully consent, it is not sufficient for them to get the treatment in the first place. Also, I don't understand the problem with doctors, therapists, and whatnot guiding and being a part of this process, checking up on a kid, but it is fine to lock them in a room, force them through changes that don't resonate with them, changes that cause them distress, and then just drop them and be like, well, you gotta wait till 18 till someone is able to help you. And then you don't even think that someone of the age of 18 should make these decisions. You want them to wait even longer till they're 25 or 30. Like, you're always pushing the line. It is incredibly important to have trans healthcare, also for minors, because that's where a lot of this dysphoria and whatnot is being developed. That's when, like, a lot of trans kids take their life. Why is a cis kid allowed to go through puberty that align with their gender identity to make memories be socialized in a way that aligns with their gender identity? But when I'm suggesting that a trans kid should be allowed the same privilege, then I'm a groomer and I'm like wrong and I'm evil and whatnot. Even if you have parents who are educated and who are supportive, getting help in the current climate is still really difficult because a lot of places where there are qualified people have really long wait lists. And if you're 12 and you're being put on a waitlist that's 5 years, maybe when you're 17, 18, you can actually start with HRT, with like the help and whatnot. But like the worst part of it all is just like making us wait and making us wait. You have to wait till you're 18. Then you have to wait till you get an appointment. Then you have to wait till you get help. And then you're 25 and you still haven't started. I started coming out with 22. I'm 28 now. I'm 3 years on HRT. It took me a really long time in order to get help, to find someone who was qualified enough, therapists who knew what gender identity is. It took me a really long time to get there. I can't imagine that it's easier for someone who is a minor. That is why the numbers are still incredibly low. And what you are doing by the bans is taking away the treatment that helps these kids, that helps trans people. You're taking that away because it doesn't align with your ignorant identity politics. It doesn't fit into your worldview, so you take away the only reason why these kids aren't taking their lives. And you package it in a way that comes from a point of compassion, of understanding, of trying to appeal to the rational and emotional side, but all you're doing is take away the care that saves these kids' lives. You phrase it in a way that you care about kids, you care to protect kids, but as soon as I mention the fact that this treatment is beneficial, that we have the studies to back it up, that we have people who are in the scientific field, who are experts working on it, trying to make sure that they are as informed as possible, that the parents are informed, they are being socialized in the right way, and they have regular checkups. There are people out there who make sure that everything goes as smoothly as possible. These people are incredibly understaffed, really hardworking, and you want to take it away because it doesn't fit into your worldview. Obviously, kids are also super vulnerable. They're impressionable, eager to fit in, and often unsure of who they are. If you've ever talked to a trans person, they could tell you that they never really truly fit in. They wanted to be just like other people born with the same biology and whatnot, but it just didn't really work. Just because we don't have the proper education and we don't have the term trans doesn't mean that we were never trans. You're basically saying that Pluto didn't exist until someone discovered and put a name on it. These children work with a lot of experts, pediatricians, therapists, to make sure that this is actually the right path, that this is the right treatment. Puberty is already a mess of emotions and identity questions. Yeah, trying to appeal to the norm, being like, oh, it's just natural to question who you are, but it's a lot different when you're trans. But yeah, obviously you're taking solid talking points, but you're misusing them in order to make out trans people and gender affirming care out to be something bad. And that is transphobia. Also, being trans is not a trend. We're living in a world where coming out as trans makes you a target. This is not something cool. This is not a TikTok trend that you can do like a cinnamon challenge or whatnot to get some easy clout. But you're using it in order to take off all the criticism invalidators come from a point of understanding and caring and trying to protect them by completely ignoring the facts when it comes to trans healthcare and trans education. Social media, influencers, and even some schools push this idea that if you feel off, you might be trans. Affirming that with medical steps is the fix. I don't know any schools who push that idea, especially not on children. If someone expresses that they don't feel comfortable in their own skin, then that is like an indicator to, hey, you know, maybe you should work with like a therapist and like talk to your parents and whatnot. And we are living in a climate where trans kids or kids that question their gender identity have to fear for their lives when talking to their parents. They don't know how their parents are going to react, if their parents are going to kick them out, if they come out to a teacher, if the teacher is going to talk to the parents. There are a lot of trust issues going on, a lot of shutting down, and you are promoting a culture where this is the norm. Obviously, not all trans people have gender dysphoria. Not all trans people want to take any medical steps, so this by default is a mute point, because the most that you would tell these kids would be like, hey, you know, do you want me to refer to you by different pronouns? Do you have like a name in mind? And apparently that by default is already bad. Apparently teachers' jobs are being threatened and they have to fear of being kicked out for affirming a trans kid's gender identity and pronouns, which is insane. But you're okay with that. And I know that you're okay with that because you don't care about trans rights at all. This isn't just a conspiracy. It's just a trend that's gone mainstream quickly. I think you're stuck in an echo chamber because I don't really think that being trans is mainstream. And we know the statistics. We know that like maybe 50,000 or like 0.1% of trans kids are on puberty blockers in the United States, which is 0.1% of 1%. It's not a lot. This is not a mainstream trend. You're basically fear-mongering about this. You're basically fear-mongering about the left-handedness and how being left-handed is now suddenly it's a mainstream trend going from 4% to over 10%. That is your talking point? Really? And we're not even talking about 4% to 10%. You're talking about 0.3% to over 1.4%. And you think that's mainstream? You think that's a trend? That's just better education, better representation, even though it is still lacking. And you know that. But you try to push this agenda. And this is why I call you transphobic. Because you're using transphobic rhetoric, anti-trans talking points. That's not all natural discovery. It's partially social contagion. And the truth is, many kids who feel gender dysphoria will grow out of it. Oh, they love this talking point. Oh, they love the... what is it? Desistance? Studies like one from the Netherlands in 2021. They up to 80% of prepubertal kids with dysphoria end up comfortable with their birth sex by adulthood. I haven't found the exact study from 2021, but there's one from 2012 or 2011, which addresses this, and it is a flawed study. They didn't account the severity of gender dysphoria. They didn't even get in touch with the same participants, and were just like, well, they've not been contacted again, so we're just saying that they desisted, which means they no longer are trans and they just grew out of it. This point already is invalid. Also, pre-puberty, you're not receiving puberty blockers or any medical treatments. You're pre-puberty. Why would you? The most you would have would be socially transitioning. But if you start them on blockers or hormones, you're locking in a path that's hard to reverse. That is not true. You're locking them into a path if you force them to go through the wrong puberty and have them wait it out. When you put them on puberty blockers, they still have the option to just stop taking puberty blockers. All you want to give them is time to figure themselves out. And starting puberty, you know, being like 1 year, 2 years into puberty is different than fully completing puberty and then having another additional puberty on top. Blockers can mess with bone density and brain development. That is why it's not recommended to do it for a long period of time. And it's actually like recommended to get them onto HRT as quick as possible, or have them drop puberty blockers and let their natural puberty run their course. Surgery, that's permanent. The only children who are getting surgery that is gender affirming are either intersex children with gender ambiguous genitalia and whatnot, or literally cis boys with gynecomastia, which happens naturally in boys through testosterone, biology, puberty, male, and it makes them feel dysphoric. So they get a mastectomy, they get a breast reduction. But you're not letting trans boys get the same treatment. You make them wait it out. You give them binders and whatnot. You put them on puberty. That doesn't make it worse. That doesn't give them even more breast growth, because that's just cruel. We know that cis kids are more privileged than trans kids because they have access to certain treatments that trans kids can't access. And a lot of times, even if they could access similar treatments, they have to jump through so many hoops. There's so many guidelines in place. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but you have to acknowledge the hypocrisy and the double standard. So I'm just really confused if you don't know this and you're like so set in your way and you're so arrogant that you don't want to listen to what other people are telling you, or if you're literally just fucking stupid. I don't want to be mean to you, but you haven't given me a reason to believe that you are arguing in good faith. I'm not going to give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm just telling you that this is like a reason why people don't want to be associated with you. It is a shame. Nobody should be alone. But when it comes to these transphobic talking points and whatnot, you don't deserve those bridges to begin with. So yeah, I replied with, if you're generally interested in learning more about the topic, my DMs are open. Obviously, I have not received a DM of any sort. Most trans people regret not transitioning sooner because the changes caused by puberty cause gender dysphoria, which leads to depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts. This is also why suicide risks are dropping by 73% if a child had access to gender-affirming care. Let me look for that study real quick so I can show you 60% less likely to experience depression and 73% less likely to experience suicidality when compared to youth who did not receive gender affirming interventions. The conclusion, investigators found on the need to address anti-transgender legislation and the additional need for medical systems and insurance providers to decrease barriers and expand access to gender affirming care. Obviously, guidelines should be in place. Guidelines have been in place all the time. It is just the fact that now the spotlight is on us. There is artificial rage being created in order to project a lot and also distract the general public from what is actually going on in the world, because you people still believe in Trump while people are losing their jobs and are suffering. Since trans healthcare is still not really accessible, most teens won't get treatment until they're 18 to 21 anyway. I had to wait 3 years because of that, despite being over 22 at the time, because staff wasn't qualified, wait times. I was driving all across my region in order to find a therapist who was able to help me and competent enough to help me. I know that Rev is, someone who is already notorious for buying into the right-wing grift and pushing that, but I didn't expect that you are this bad. It sucks that you want to ruin the lives of trans people, and it sucks that you use your cult following, your way bigger influence and platform to harass me and try to silence me for speaking up, lying about me, fully knowing the risks, the threats, the dangers that come from it. Obviously, I know that I'm making myself a target by speaking out about these things. I wish I could change people's mind, and I feel sad that my videos don't reach the audience that is my target audience, and instead I'm attracting negative attention through people like Rev. But I'm going to keep pushing, and I know I'm right. I know that your talking points have been dismantled a lot of times. I know that there are people who are much more qualified than I am getting the same type of harassment. All we're doing is trying to help people, and you want to drag us down because you're miserable. It was my rant about the situation going on. I don't want this to be like a common thing now for me to just basically always be targeted by people like Rev and making a video out of it. I know that if he would make a video out of it, he would make way more money than I will ever do. And that's not fair. I don't know why these people have like such a hard time like just looking into how gender affirming care actually works. But honestly, it's getting a little bit frustrating. That's the Rev situation in the nutshell. I did get ratioed. I got owned by the Twitter people. I got put in my place by Rev says transphobia. I like it when ASM artists put me in my place, but not when they're trying to ratio me by using transphobic talking points. That's not hot. That's not the ASMR that I like to listen to.